Welcome to the GSE video podcast. And why are we recording it? Well, we're inviting special guests from the industry to share their hands-on insights and real-world experience directly with the GSE students here at the University of Klagenfurt. For anybody who's tuning in, not knowing what the University of Klagenfurt is, just check your Google Maps. The GSE program stands for Game Studies and Engineering, and it's a very specialized international interdisciplinary master's program right here at the University of Klagenfurt. Today, we're diving deep into the realities of starting an indie game company from scratch and also navigating the shift between PC game development and mobile releases. It is one thing to code a game for a class project. Most of our students did that, but it's a different ballgame to officially launch a company, release an early access game on Steam that is actually successful, and then take the same experience into mobile app stores. We'll look at that together with two very special guests today, Michael Steinkellner and Sebastian Uitz. The two are co-founders of Fire Totem Games, a fantastic indie game studio based here in Klagenfurt. You might know them for the adorable and clever puzzle platformer with a lot of physics in there, a lot of destruction and fun spiders, a wedding journey, which they already launched on Steam, on the App Store and on Google Play Store. Sebastian, Michael, welcome to the podcast. Can you say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, then I will start. Thank you for having us, Matthias. I'm Sebastian, founder and lead at Fire Totem Games. And yeah, I wear a lot of hats every day. So I'm main programmer. I handle our social media. So everything you see on social media is done by me. And I integrate everything, test a lot of the game, and do a good chunk of the business side too. So a lot of things, but that is typical in a small indie studio.
Yes, exactly. I'm Michael. I'm also co-founder of the company, and my background is music and sound design, but also some business from school. And yeah, I do a lot of business development in the company as well, and also localization and a lot of publisher stuff. So together we cover pretty wide area of skills together.
Great. That's a lot of hats. Thanks for joining in for the interview and sharing your experiences. To start with the first steps, let's go back to the beginning. How did you actually meet? And what was the catalyst to decide, hey, let's make a game studio?
I think the meeting part, that is something you can explain, Michael.
Yes, we met actually at the Game Jam, but in Graz, at a global Game Jam. And we both were there like the first people and very well prepared. And we ended up in the same team, had a good time and stayed in contact. And it was like a series of small commitments, like working together every now and then. Also, then there was the pandemic and lockdowns. We worked together online. And yeah, it was building up trust through some months. And then, wanting to build a game together, a bigger one.
And Sebastian, then you thought, I can trust a bearded guy. Let's make a studio.
But back then, he did not have a beard like that. So it was way shorter. I did a lot of game jams. So even before meeting Michael, but the Global Game Jam was my second game jam that I attended in person. So the first ones were just online on itch.io and other websites. And so I was there in Graz to meet some people and see who I can work with. And Michael was a really good musician. So I was happy to end up in the same team. And as you already mentioned, we worked on several other projects, game jams after that. And my dream was always to make a game of my own and then, of course, start a game studio, because there's nothing in the near surrounding that is doing something like that. So the only way to really make a game or work in the industry was creating your own studio. And then we stumbled upon a very interesting game mechanic, which then turned into the game that we have right now.
Which totally leads to the next question. So how did you come about your first game? What was the decision? Was it the process of refining it, or was the idea there and everybody said, oh yeah, let's do that?
Yeah, actually, we had a few game jam games that we were thinking about making a game out of. But then in the summer of 2021, I was playing around with various tutorials on game design and mechanics, and then stumbled upon this inverse kinematics, how spiders move their legs. And that was something I was really interested in and continued working on. And suddenly I had a spider that can build webs, that can swing around. It was like fun to play and was an interesting mechanic that I have not seen in any other game. especially in 3D. And then we submitted the game for the Supertron, which was like this turning point of, okay, now we are making a real game out of this silly little prototype. And that's how it all started.
Mm-hmm. And it stood out on social media. It got more responses. And so we thought this is a good idea. And we started with having a wholesome puzzle platformer on islands with a love story. And it took some time until we arrived at the final concept of doing the oversized household chores.
Were you in total agreement that it will be a wholesome game, that it will be a cozy experience? Or at some point you said, oh, let's make some horror spiders or shooting spiders or something like that?
Actually, during that time period, I was in this wholesome, cozy area of games. So I played a short hike a few months before that. So I was leaning into that direction, and I'm not a big fan of horror games. So yeah, it was also this kind of funny idea of making a cute spider game compared to the typical idea of spiders in games, that there are negative and enemies that you fight. So that was like a real nice contrast of just being a cute spider with no combat and just living your life.
Also for marketing, it was a thought on marketing too, to market it in the wholesome community and maybe also get some funding for not another fighting game.
So there was the idea, there was the Superton pitch where you basically won your first prize for the idea and then the decision to make the game actually happen. Of course, there were a few stones in the road, but at some point, I think it was last year, at the beginning of last year, you actually put out the early access release on Steam. And looking back at this initial Steam release, how did it go? What were the biggest positive surprises and what were the negative surprises that you did not anticipate?
Yeah, so the release was pretty much a year ago, so in May of 2025. And it was a lot of work going into the release because suddenly everything has to be finished and has to work. All the bugs should be fixed. So there was a lot more work before the release. It was like, long nights and extra hours during that period. And also after the release, there was like a period of 2 weeks where, of course, a lot of people downloaded the game, played the game, found new bugs that never were found before by the testers. So you also needed to fix those things as fast as possible because every bug that was found means that thousands of other people have the same bug or might encounter the same bug. So the faster you fix it, the better it is, especially for your reviews on Steam. It was good that we did not have any game-breaking bugs. And we also had a lot of sales. It was pretty much around the number that we was expecting. So that is a good thing because often you hear that depending on your wish lists, the numbers that you expect are much lower than what you expected. And for us, it pretty much aligned to what we expected. And that was really, really nice. And it was nice to finally earn some money with the game, especially the big peak at the release was really, really nice.
I said, don't see you driving around with a Ferrari. You did not anticipate to get one of those. To hear that actually the formulas were right for you, so that you could derive possible sales from the wish list.
Yeah, and it was a lot of work, except programming and creating stuff. It was also a lot of work finding publisher, doing lots of calculation of cost and revenue and creating pitch decks. And I don't know what, you always underestimate how much work it is.
Kudos for creating a studio. This is most likely the biggest surprise, how much actual work you can put in. It never ends, it seems. Okay, but you're satisfied with the Steam launch. The game is progressing and you're still selling copies. So that's good. But recently you decided to go to the mobile market too. So can you describe how you approached the process? Because everything was focused on Steam. I mean, I know you did the game for the Steam Deck. It worked well on the Steam Deck, got certified. I play on a Steam Deck actually. And how did you shift to mobile, rethinking it for the small touch screens?
Yeah, so the shift to mobile actually happened quite a while earlier already. So initially it was never planned to be a mobile game because releasing your game on Steam is like the easiest thing that you can do after releasing it on itch.io because itch.io is even easier. But Steam is like this golden standard for indie games. Like you really focus on getting your game out on Steam because there's where you can really earn money and where it's not too complicated to push any updates. But the mobile idea came 3 years ago already. That's when we went viral on TikTok for the first time. Really, really viral. So marketing really did a good job there and the algorithm liked us. And of course, on TikTok, there are a lot of kids and they play on mobile, and we got hundreds, thousands of comments asking for a mobile version of the game. And basically, we were toying around with just connecting or making an Android build because that is easy on Unity, and then connecting a Bluetooth controller and playing the game on the mobile phone, which surprisingly worked. And yeah, then we joked around with that and showed that in a video, and then people got even more crazy about the possible mobile version. And from that point onwards, it was like, okay, we could actually do it because the game is not running that bad. There was a lot of optimization that was needed. So that is a big topic when bringing a game from Steam to mobile. And also the other topic is the controls, because not everybody plays with a controller. Like 99% play with touch because that's what you do with a phone. And for that, you really have to rethink your controls and think about where to place which buttons. And if you start with a keyboard, you have 100 buttons that you could use on the keyboard plus the mouse. Then you go to a controller, which has limited amount of buttons. Then you go to the touch screen, which, could have a lot of buttons, but then you're limiting what the player can see and use in the game. So it's really tough to combine all those things, especially when you think about new features that you want to add to the game and how they are then used on each of these platforms. So that is a big topic.
Does it actually open a new market? How big is the overlap between people that can buy and play on Steam and those that buy and play on mobile? Have you any idea on that?
I know that there are people that play on both platforms, but I think for the majority, it's either or. So it's really opening up a lot of new potential customers for your game. Especially if you go mobile, you have a lot bigger customer base or player base that you can reach, which is also the same for us. Due to our game being basically free to download on Android and iOS, that makes it also easy for everybody to just try it out. But when we look at the download numbers, it's like a factor of, I don't know, almost 100 between Steam and mobile. So that is a crazy difference. And now it's just about monetizing those downloads, which is something we actually did this year or started doing this year with in-app purchases and ads in the game.
Following up on the purchases. So as far as we talked a lot before, so we know each other for quite some time now. So what I know is from the going viral part that, of course, not everything you went viral with went viral in Europe. And there are other countries in the world that have a different economy. Do you think is the mobile market also expecting the game to be cheaper? I mean, your game is not expensive at all, but would the mobile market then ask for, say, half the price or a quarter of the price or something like that? What is your take on that?
When it comes to prices, I think that's a general topic. That's not just PC and or mobile related, but it is for everything. So when you release a game, fortunately, the platforms, Steam and Google and Apple, are providing you a calculation table for all the different countries. So if you make an in-app purchase that costs like €2 here, it is most likely $2 in America, but then it's depending on that, something cheaper in some other countries. Same with Steam. So our game now costs €10, and in some countries it only costs €8 or €6, depending on the conversion and the actual economy and how much people earn in that country. So we try to keep that number realistic, but we can also not go too cheap because then we don't earn a lot of money.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. And did you have any experience already with these key sharing platforms? Because many people that release on Steam say that Greenman Gaming and all those other platforms have an impact on the sales, that they buy the keys somewhere else where they are cheaper and then resell them somewhere in Europe or the US?
I have not checked any of the platforms if there are keys available for our game, but yeah, in the end, I think every sale is nice to have. So it will happen eventually, and there are other ways that the game get pirated and whatever. So I'd rather have it be bought by somebody that is then reselling the key than it getting pirated by somebody. So
That's a good point. Absolutely. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's also good if people enjoy the game.
yes.
Okay, then now that you have your experience with Google Play, Apple, and Steam, it's already 3 industry giants. How do they actually compare? Who is the most complicated one, and who makes it really easy to get your game out?
I will start with Steam and Google Play, and then Michael can talk about the Apple side because he is doing most of the stuff there when it comes to the store and testing and the game and everything. The easiest is basically Steam. So if you release a game on Steam, you have to pay a fee of 100 euros, roughly like that, for your Steam page. So that's just a simple prevention to get all this slop out of the way, because having to pay 100 euros just to get your Steam page is more than zero that you do on itch.io. And so getting a game on Steam has an upfront cost, but Steam will then eventually give you that money back once you earn money. So that is nice. But then you go through typical review stuff with your Steam page, with your game, so that Steam sees that your game is a proper game, is not any virus or whatever, and is running. And that you only do for like the first version of the game or your almost release candidate. But after you are through the initial review, you can do whatever, basically. So you can do all the changes. There is no further reviews for most of them. So you can change your Steam page completely freely, add more, change the text, add more screenshots, and also upload new versions of your game. That is done within a few minutes. So that is super easy. So if you have any issues, any game-breaking bugs, you could fix them within half an hour or whatever. And the game is up and running for everybody in new state. So that is really nice. You can also upload 1 million branches and beta test versions of your game, playtest versions. So you can test out new features and people can just switch between the branches. So that is really nice. When it comes to Google Play for Android phones, it is a lot different. So the store page is pretty much, you don't have that much customization for the store page, which is of course nice for the user. So they get the same experience, just get the video, a few screenshots, some text. When it comes to uploading games, loading new versions, every new version that is going out for either internal test or public testing or the release version goes through a review of Google. And that is something that can take up to a day, maybe even longer. So they, of course, tell you that it can take a few business days, but it was never the case. So maximum 24 hours, and those reviews usually went through. We never had any big issues. So never did they ever say no to any updates. So that is really nice. But I guess if you do some bad stuff or weird changes, that they could say no, and you have to do another version. But you have to go through a review, which can take up to a day. So if you find a game-breaking bug, fix it now and then send the stuff into a review. Also, another thing, making a build for mobile takes way longer than doing a PC build with Unity. So that is something that is super annoying during development, because every change you make that you want to test on the phone takes around 15 minutes for you to really be able to test it on your phone. And why during that period, you cannot do anything in Unity. So I don't know, drink a coffee, read a book in the meantime or whatever, or check social media, because you cannot do anything else during that time period, which is super annoying and not very motivating to work on. So that is in general for mobile, which I think might be the same for if you do any consoles in the future. And anything else for Google Play? In general, never any big problems with Google. Apple was a bit different. So Michael can tell you something about that, I guess.
I was not involved in the early
True.
development on Apple. That was Noel's part. So I don't know a lot about this, but I say what I know about, and then you can fill in the gaps. So you also pay on the App Store like 100 euro, but per year if you want to release a game. And review process is quite similar to Google, I think. So you always have to upload your build into review. What is different is you need a Mac and Xcode for doing a build, actually, for compiling it. And that's a bit of a hassle to set up all the provisioning profiles and signed stuff. It's much more closed. And then something that is similar on both platforms is 30% fee on sales revenue. It's similar to Steam, but on mobile platforms, we discovered that you have option of a small company program. So you only pay 15% on revenue. And that is something that Steam does not offer, for example.
Nice. So you can save a little bit of money on Apple and Google. But what would be the share? What is your expected share? So would you say I make 60% on Steam and 40% on mobile, or how would it relate?
So right now, the actual share is, I would say, 80% on Steam still.
Okay.
So we have not fully finished the monetization that we want to achieve. So that should be updated in the coming month. So once that is done, we hope that ideally it should be 50-50. That would be nice. But having the bigger revenue on one side is good to see, because then you know which version you should focus on. And yeah, two more things that I want to add to the Apple thing. So Michael mentioned that you need a Mac and Xcode. You also need an iPhone for testing, apparently. But for testing, I think, okay, there are like two things. So on Android, you can directly build the game to your phone. So you can, if you don't have any features that need Google Play, you can directly run it on your phone. You don't have to go through the App Store to upload and then download the game on your phone, which is then a loop of like, I don't know, 25 minutes or whatever. So you can directly install it on your phone. iPhone, I think that's for iPhone, you make, the thing is you make an iOS build in Unity, and then you take that iOS build and then you feed that through Xcode to get the files that you would then upload to the App Store or directly to your phone. So that's like an extra step you have to do. You need a specific version of Xcode. So that's something we found out, that you need like a newer version of Xcode. So if you have an old Mac, that might not be enough because your Mac version is too old, that you cannot run the newest or the latest Xcode version.
It has to be the newest. So if you don't have it, you're out of luck.
Yeah, so that is something that you have to consider. So that is always an issue. Michael mentioned the 100 euros that you have to spend. This is not per game. This is general for your account. So you have to pay 100 euros a year for your Apple account to be able to upload apps. And then you can upload 100 apps. Doesn't matter. It's still 100 euros, which is not that much, especially if you earn some money that is neglectable. For Google, it is a lot easier because you only pay 25 euros one time when you create your account, and that's it. So that is even easier. It's, I think, the cheapest option of all of them. So that is really, really nice.
Yeah, and from my side, because I tested the game on iPad, the platform for testing games for iOS is really nice, the Test Flight.
Yes, that is something really nice that I also wanted to mention, because Test Flight, you can have 10 versions that you test and that you can jump between, and then you upload the new version. For Google Play, it is always the latest version that you upload. So you cannot test two features at the same time. You always have one version where everything has to be inside. So that is a little bit annoying. And yeah,
I think it will get more annoying because Google is closing the ecosystem a little bit with the signed APKs. But let's see what they come up with. Maybe they'll copy Test Flight anyway. I will re-ask you in half a year.
Okay. We are already verified, so we will not run into any issues with Google.
But you're not considering alternative app stores like on Samsung or Amazon or something like that?
Not really. Okay. There are so many stores out there also for PC that you can do, like GOG is like the biggest, and Epic Store, of course, Epic Game Store. But there are so many other smaller stores and websites where you could upload your game and earn additional money, which is a nice idea. But if you really calculated the extra effort for uploading your version to that stores and keeping it in sync with the other stores all the time, like if I make an update every week on Steam and I have to update 100 other stores with the same version, that is just a lot of effort that might not get you more money in the end.
That is a good point. Yeah, the return of investment for all the work there. Yes. Okay, thank you for all your insights. That's very enlightening, especially I have no experience with iOS at all, publishing on the App Store. So I'm always listening to that. I'm pretty sure that you have a lot of experience and lessons learned in your quiver and can tell us a lot. But if you just roll back time, so each of you for yourself individually, if you roll back time and could do one thing differently, what would you change?
Only one thing. I have two on my list, actually. So first of all the social media stuff that we did was quite good, but we did not jump onto the TikTok and Instagram and YouTube Shorts boat as early as we could. And it was a lot easier back then to really stand out with games. Nowadays, there are a lot of game devs. So starting earlier and focusing on those platforms like 2 years earlier, that might have done a big difference. And the other thing is, what I would have done differently is not go the island route with our game and directly start with the kitchen. all the house levels. So that could have saved us like 2 years of development in the end if we directly go into the direction our game is really thriving in. So yeah, that are the two things that could be different.
Yeah, in hindsight, but it's part of the process. You don't know it before. I have two things too, but they are maybes. So maybe investing time early on to set up the project for a multiplayer in a really early stage, and then work up from that. Because now we always went the single player route, and what we had a lot of requests for multiplayer, and it's not really possible to go multiplayer now. It is possible, but it's a lot of work. And setting that up earlier would have made it a lot easier, I guess. And the second one is maybe not go early access for early access launch, but for a 1.0 launch immediately, because a lot of people have been burned by developers breaking their promises in early access.
I assume you will not do that. I paid in, so I expect you not.
Yes, but you have to earning the trust is very hard because of past experiences, of bad experiences by people. If
That's
people
true. Yes,
read
it's a
early
little.
access, they think twice, should I really buy it? Even if it's a good
Yes.
game, and even if we are developing it. So
But I mean, the one good thing about early access is that you immediately get something out of it. So your game was really playable at launch, from my personal opinion. And I think most of the others also thought so because the reviews were really positive. And that's not the case, for instance, with Kickstarter. I just dumped $100 on Kickstarter yesterday and everybody said, will you really get the device? And I said, yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
you need
Let's
to
see.
get your money back if you don't get the device.
No,
No?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, but they reached the funding goal already. So, and I trust them. I have already 2 devices from the company. So
That is really nice. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
Kickstarter and early access are two things that were a lot better a few years ago.
yes,
But as Michael already mentioned, a lot of developers did not keep their promises or did not end up dropping the game. But I have to say that I can understand them, because if the game is not selling and if you cannot sustain your company, what will you do if you cannot find the money to continue? A lot of companies die again and vanish. So that is just the life cycle. It's unfortunate. I would love for every game to be finished. And yeah, going 1.0 right away would have been a lot better. But getting the game to a 1.0 state also takes longer. And if you don't have the money to continue working on it, then you will never reach 1.0. So going early access is a good middle ground of us surviving as a company and working on the game, making it
that's
finished.
true. And there have been good examples that it actually works. Yeah. Like 7 Days to Die is still living, or Parkosaurus made it. One of my favorites. Nobody knows it. So there are many games that succeed too. Thank you for sharing your insights here. Let's distill it now, maybe to have 3 pieces of advice, easy things to remember for aspiring founders. So if the students of GSE decide, I will make a great indie studio, and the people from Fire Totem Games said that A, B, and C should be considered, what would they be?
Okay, 3 things. So the one thing that I think every game dev is telling you is to make small games and actually ship them. So don't work on a super big game as your first game like we do. So in hindsight, that would also be like a thing to go through the whole pipeline of planning the game, making the game, publishing, marketing, whatever else is included. Just to go through the whole pipeline once, learn or make all the mistakes, especially with smaller games, and just get them out and maybe work on the game for half a year, maximum a year, so that you can also start a new project, which is much more exciting than working on the same project for years. So ship something small and then ship again and again until you have the experience and the knowledge, and then you work on something big. That is your masterpiece.
in our case, it would have been like releasing the island levels as a webbing journey and the house as a webbing journey too, for example.
That would be an option, yeah. But I don't know if how much success we would have had with just the islands on Steam, and if not having success with that game would have lead us to making a webbing journey 2. So
You
that
never
is
know.
also, you never know what would have happened. Maybe we would have worked on a completely different game by now and dropped the webbing journey and missed out on all the cool, funny house interactions. The next thing that is super important and a lot of game devs are missing is starting to build your audience as early as possible. So if you work on a game, start building your audience now, because it takes time. It is a long process and you cannot cheat the system. You really have to start as early as possible so that you can build up your wish lists, you can build your community, you have your presence on all the different social media channels. It is super important to try out different things and see which platform is working for you. So it could be TikTok, it could be YouTube, could be short form, long form videos, it could be just Reddit. Yeah. So the earlier you start, the better, because the more wishes you have, the better your launch will be. And in combination with that is also talking to your player. So that is like in combination, if you really have your social presence, you get the feedback and you have the opportunity to upload the demo, get feedback, make play tests to see what players like about your game, if they like it at all. Because if you work 2 years on a game and nobody wants to play whatever you make, that is super, super bad. And also what is super important when you do that is really being consistent with everything. So really not just being active once a week or once a month or every other month, so really do it constantly and trying to improve and reach out to players. Yeah. So ship something small, building your audience and testing your game as early and as often as possible. Those are my 3 things.
Mhm. Yeah,
Awesome. Michael,
for the
anything to
business,
add?
for the business part and
Yes.
the team part, you will go through stressful times when you release or when you build a commercial game, and you need a good team and good communication. So don't jump into contracts with people you don't have a good feeling with. Do some low risk projects first and do it with partners that are on the same level with you. So you have the same like learning curve and you can grow and learn together. And it's also really satisfying and rewarding. Then the business side is a skill. So treat it as a real skill and yeah, learn about contracts, about funding, and don't ignore that part. Otherwise it will hurt you later. And maybe join a business incubator program. Yes, we joined 2 business incubator programs from Bild Gründungszentrum here in Carinthia, and that also helped us a lot with the finding the audience, building marketing stuff for the right audience, and pitching in the right way to publishers, and doing the how do you call it?
Negotiations.
Yeah, you need training to do that. It's a skill.
So your 3 things would be build a good team, hone your business skill, including negotiations, and join an incubator program.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. That is a lot of knowledge for the people. I mean, the cool thing is that university sometimes teaches this stuff, but it's always better to actually hear from people who succeeded in it, that this is really also practical advice. So thank you for handing it out and also for the condensed form, because I mean, if you pick 3 things, they are the most important for you right now. And that makes them also important. So that was, I think, incredible, valuable advice. Thank you so much to both of you for joining in and being so open about the process, because that's also something that people are often not open about. And yeah, I think that's it for today's episode. I hope everybody watching and listening had some fun and took some great notes for their own future projects. So Sebastian, anything you wanted to add as final words here?
Yeah, just again, a huge thank you for having us and talking about these topics. And I hope a lot of students will watch this and get inspired, get motivated, and make more games. And hopefully we have some future studios popping out in Klagenfurt. So that would be nice.
Yeah, and maybe we said some scary stuff, so don't let it scare you. Just take it step by step.
Yeah. If you need any help, Matthias can give you the contact to us. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact us and we can help you out with almost every topic, I think.
Yeah, that's a very grand offer. So thank you for that. Also, I can direct you to the incubation program and entrepreneurship programs. And actually, this was really good advice from Michael, because those are also offering a safety net. So if you cannot succeed, then you will not ruin your life, but you have tried, honestly tried. And if it's nothing for you, you can still back out. So that's the great part about those things. If you have any feedback, then please let us know. You can just comment at the platform you watched us or listened to us. So YouTube will be the main video podcast platform, but I always upload the audio file to Spotify too. You can also contact us directly using the email address gse@, and the link is of course in the show notes. Also, you'll find in the show notes, of course, the Steam page where you can buy a webbing journey and support our friends at Fire Totem Games, and of course their webpage and their itch.io page with the portfolio of the awesome Game Jam games they did. All of those links are waiting for you in the show notes. So thanks again for listening in, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.